Hi, it's Nikki here at the B96 Blue Cross Blue Shield Performance Stage. And we are here today because it's the first day of May, and May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. We've invited Hope for the Day here to talk to us today. They are a local organization about mental health awareness and suicide prevention. We're here with Johnny, Gracie, Jackie, and Carl.
Hello.
And Johnny is actually the owner and co-founder of Hope for the Day. So why don't you tell us how you started this whole thing?
I'm the founder, but just so everyone knows, it's a nonprofit. So technically, I don't own it. The board technically runs it. But
Okay.
at the end of the day, it's for the people and by the people.
Yes.
So I started Hope for the Day in late 2011. And it was because I have lost a lot of people to suicide. To date, unfortunately, that number is 15. And at first, it was really hard to grasp a hold of that. But I came from the music industry. And instead of doing artist management or being another concert promoter or festival promoter, I decided to use my passion for music and the arts to break the barriers and try and put an end to the stigma around suicide and mental health, to connect people to the proper services that are available.
15 people. I'm kind of shocked by that.
Yeah, it's kind of sad, but I started booking shows back in the day, and I think it's just the more that you open your door to multiple communities and get to learn about more people, unfortunately, life happens. So.
Well, I'm glad you decided to take this route.
Yeah, me too.
Because there's a lot of people out there that are going through issues. Some have no one to talk to at home. There's bad stuff happening there. There's bad stuff happening at school. It's like everywhere you look, there's a dead end. You have no one to talk to. And this type of organization is just for that, to show people, you do have someone to talk to.
Absolutely. Our slogan is it's okay not to be okay. And the simplicity in that is that we have to understand that, one, we're human, and we're going through this thing called life. And if we have to ask for help, it's okay to ask for help. And it's also okay to feel these ways that we're feeling because, like I said, we're human, and that's what we're supposed to do. But what we are really seeing a big issue is the fact that people are scared to talk about it. And silence is the biggest issue right now. And that's why we strive to break as the silence as much as possible in any way, shape, or form. So we try to go to the people as much as we can, because we feel if we go to them in situations like concerts or at church or even at a Michelin star a restaurant, and we partner up with a restaurant, we're able to engage with their community and let them know that, hey, we're talking about this, but we're not talking about it as it's something bad to talk about. It's more or less everybody is going through something. Right. And the more we talk about it, the easier it is to talk about, and the less you'll feel alone. It's
kind of like that old saying, men don't cry.
Oh, yeah.
Men cry.
I cry all the time.
They weep. They sob. They have nervous breakdowns. All of that. It's like you said, it's natural.
Yeah.
It's human. And there is a reason for that. It's because it's a stigma.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like there's two reasons for it kind of coming more to the surface recently. First is celebrities. People like Lady Gaga, Demi Lovato, Selena Gomez, Kesha have all been through these bizarre issues and have gone to facilities to get help, have gone through rehab.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to hide it.
No.
They're saying, hey, this is real. This is what happened. And they are also passing on that message that it shouldn't be a stigma.
Absolutely. I mean, look what Kid Cudi did when he came out and said that he had to go get help. What that did for not only the music community, but around the world.
Mm-hmm. It makes people feel safe and okay about it.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why we strive to do it in any way, shape possible, because we're not here to tell people how to feel. We're here to meet them where they're at, and understand that where they're at is okay. But where they're going, as long as they need some help, they can ask for that. And that's really where we strive, because we're not another hotline or anything like that. We're here to be the connector. So we have our goals of breaking the silence, raising the visibility of resource, and then ultimately being able to help connect those people to the proper resources.
Right. The second reason is for organizations just like yours.
Yeah.
Like you're here.
Yeah.
And you're making it known that you're here. So people like Gracie can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
So Gracie, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Okay, my name is Gracie. I'm a senior in high school right now, and I started working with Hope for the Day when I was about 15. So I'm graduating this year. That would have been between my freshman year and sophomore year. And when I first got involved with Hope for the Day, I was still in a really vulnerable place. It was probably about a year and a half after what I would kind of call the climax of what happened with my mental health. There was a good probably 6 months period of my life where I was 13 leading up to my 14th birthday in middle school, and I just spent those entire 6 months in and out of inpatient units, in and out of counseling, for multiple suicide attempts, self-injury and eating disorder. It was all these kind of problems, I guess, started developing at a really young age when I was around 11 or 12. And, you know, it was never talked about in school. It was never talked about at home. My parents didn't know how to address it. They didn't know what to do for me. So when I kind of finally hit the point where I landed myself in the emergency room and later the ICU, the intensive care unit, from my first suicide attempt, it was finally kind of this wake-up call to my family and my friends and the people around me, like, wow, like there's something going on and it needs to be done. But they still didn't know what steps to take. So after going through the motions of counseling and trying different medications and everything for just months on end, it was really like cyclical, like inpatient, outpatient, home. Landed myself back in, kept just going round and around. It was really cool to find an organization like Hope for the Day, just to kind of like see that there are people out there who care, because I thought I was like so alone because like nobody talked about it. Nobody really knew what was going on with me at the time. So to come out and find an organization like this that also was a big part of like the music community I really cared about and was really into, and it was kind of this like one last thing I was holding on to. It was just really awesome. So now I get to come and volunteer, and I get to share my story sometimes like right now, and it's just really cool knowing that I can take like what I've been through, but instead of just kind of like sitting with it and letting it like kind of like fester and getting angry about it, I can funnel it through in a more positive direction.
So you were attracted to this Hope for the Day for the particular reason, obviously, that you mentioned, but I noticed that you said music. Is it because of, you know, your background, you bring the music?
Well,
how does that attract kids in a different way?
Well, it's the way that we, we really shine is when I left the music industry, I immediately went right back and just said, hey, there's a huge issue out here, and I can only do so much. Because this theory that if I talk about it and keep talking about it and you know, putting it in front of audiences, more people are going to want to talk about it. And that was the truth. But I said, how can we get out there in such a progressive way that connects people with things that make them happy? Because if you focus on the happy stuff, you can kind of weed out a lot of the negative stuff, right? So, you know, with a lot of my friends in the bands that I worked with in the past, they have this huge opportunity as a musician or an artist or a creative, or, you know, that everybody has in their life. But it's to say, hey, this is how I got here. And sometimes because we just don't want to put it out there, but like you said, celebrities are starting to talk about it more, and it's like, you know, we can we can either have TMZ post about some some stupid picture that really doesn't mean anything, or it could be, hey, this person opened up and expressed themselves through their music, but while that was going on, they were struggling, and at one of the hardest part of their times of their life. Maybe we're not talking about that in a press release, but we're talking about it right now and the importance of that, because then it educates that audience immediately. So what we started doing was we started working with bands, and we gave them resource cards with their band logo on it, some lyrics, and we were starting to hand out at their shows all around the world, because we're only a small organization, but we needed to kind of get some of the foot soldiers out there. And by just having these flyers and these resource cards at the merch tables or in these music venues all around the world, so many people have been able to connect with that because they're being influenced by something that not only they believe in, but they love. And it's not saying, if you're depressed, call this number. It's saying it's okay not to be okay. And that's how Gracie, found us originally, was through a band, The Color Morale, which is from Rockford, Illinois. They tour all around the world, and their vocalist he's a very, very big advocate for it. So it was great to see it kind of come full circle. But like I said, there's many Gracies that found it just like that, and through music, we then went to arts, and then we went to health and wellness. And literally, if you tell me I can't put "It's Okay Not to Be Okay" on something or tag to it, you're gonna find yourself getting told in a couple days. Actually, I just proved it to you, and here's 5 examples. Right. So it's anything and everything, because you never know the ripple effect. And I think a big thing about Hope for the Day is, sure, I started it, but there are so many people that help lead this organization all around the world, because we actively do work in Europe, the UK, Australia, Canada, and the States. But with a small staff here in Chicago, but it's truly just by empowering people. And I think that's something that Carl and I can connect with, because him and I went to high school together.
Oh, okay.
And I was golfing one day with his brother, and I kind of just told him what I was up to after a few years of not seeing him. And
So, Carl, tell us about your involvement and how the golf went in that whole.
Well, I think I was just picking Johnny up or my brother up from, but I'm the director of programs and operations for Hope for the Day, and I got started in 2013. It actually kind of started with helping Johnny write a grant, and then I had been involved in some other social work while I was actually still attending school, and over the summer of 2013. I kind of just got suckered into coming into the office more often, but this organization hit a real crossroads for me, or a real powerful intersection, because I had attempted to complete suicide when I was 12 and 13, and it was related to a lot of pressures related to bullying and sort of racial identity issues. And so it kind of seemed like a natural calling when Johnny, who I kind of knew in high school, we were traveled in the same social circles, sort of came back to me and told me what he was doing, and I just felt compelled to put all my energy into it. And from there, I've been, lucky enough to be a part of growing this organization, where we started in music venues and began to develop and evolve our programs and operations to include from advocacy into outreach into education, so that now when we tell people what we do, the shortest way to describe it is that we focus on proactive suicide prevention. So doing that, being able to have that conversation, the biggest obstacle, as John already mentioned, is silence. But in reality, to get through that and unpack the silence, what we have to do is recognize the impact of stigma in our lives. And stigma gets bandied about as kind of a buzzword, but what you want to think of when you think of stigma is that it's the social and cultural influences that try to dictate how we express ourselves. And so when you think of music, the natural tie-in for us with music is that when you go to a concert and you're in the venue and you jump and scream and sing along, those are things you're doing in this community that might be predominantly strangers, that you may not do in your family household or in your school or in your place of work. Well, the reason that's happening, that you're letting that true self out, is because you feel safe, free from judgment, emancipated from a lot of the baggage that we're conditioned to have a part of our lives since we're young kids. You mentioned boys don't cry, and that is a stigma. And so it's not just like a fluffy hashtag. Stigma are these cultural and social influences that really try to dictate how we behave. So that's both men have these issues, women have these things. When we talk about body confidence and what a woman can wear, it's stigma that perpetuates and dictates how a female's supposed to dress. And then we move forward and evolve to, we talk about orientation and identity, and these are all stigmas of how people respond to that. And then we also talk about cultural stigma and the fact that self-expression is how we're going to communicate our internal self. So we're not just saying it's just dancing and painting. We mean, how do you communicate your own internal health? You twist your ankle, you scream out loud. What happens when the pain is something that sits inside of your mind, and things like that. And so if you continue to evolve that conversation where we're bringing everyone together, so it's not just veterans over here and gays over there and individuals who are struggling with academic pressure and bullying over there. We want everyone to hear the same thing and appreciate it's okay not to be okay. But we still get to go into communities where the intersection has specific influence, such as with the African American community, where and the African American community is not alone in this, and where there's huge cultural stigmas that try to clamp down on how men and women are supposed to express themselves. And this is in the Latino community, this is in European communities, this is in numerous Asian communities, and just along with Western European or Caucasian or white people in America, it's the same thing, where we grow up hearing and being conditioned to certain ways how we're supposed to talk about when we're hurt and when we're sad. And even though it's accessible to talk about how you're happy, what do we do with these things that our families aren't communicating, from the older generations to the younger ones, and how we can't even bring it into our places of work and business and school without being terrified of what people are going to think about us?
Like if you went to your mom as a kid, and you said, "Mom, I'm sad about this," and she's like looking at you funny, like, "What are you, some kind of wuss?" Those are the kinds of reactions you that just kind of throw you back in the closet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like the complete opposite. And you mentioned concerts. Going to concerts is a way to release and be part of something. I feel like, Hope for the Day is kind of like going to a concert. It's like you can go there, you're going to be accepted no matter who you are. You're with your people, you're with people of likeness.
No, absolutely. We say we have a no wrong door policy, meaning that there is no wrong door on how you get your help, because we hear it all the time, not even from kids. We started focusing on youth, but by utilizing power of music and the arts, you spread all over the place, and we found that there are people that just felt like they couldn't go down that dark, scary, pathway of getting help from a clinical person, or feeling that, okay, I'm depressed, I'm going to have to take a drug or somewhat. It's not that at all. It's for us, it's, hey, express yourself, and if you need to keep going on that professional route, those routes are available. You can go to our Find Help button on our page, and those numbers are there to help you. Those resources are. But by expressing yourself, you can, one, combat this, but you can also let other people know how you're feeling, what you're feeling, and where that progression is going to lead to, and that's why we have Jackie on our advisory here, because she's amazing at the clinical stuff when it really needs to come down to, but at the same time she's an art therapist, which I know some people are like, oh, you're just like a fancy artist, right, Jackie?
I've heard that many
I mean,
times
she is a
before.
fancy artist. You should totally check her out.
I could be that too. Yes. But
So you must have sat down with her a bunch of times and done some art therapy.
well, anything can be art therapy. I think everyone's an artist. But how I got involved was there was actually an event going on down the block from my apartment, and it was an art show. And I was like, wow, I'm a counselor and I'm an artist. And so this just sounds right up my alley. But when I got there, I realized that it was a really powerful message behind it, and just the sense of community and welcoming that was going on was really cool. So I was like, this is something I have to get involved with and kind of keep following through with. So in 2015, I actually connected with Carl, and we sat down and kind of figured out how I could get involved and how I could use my clinical knowledge to help the team and provide resources for people who didn't really know how to take that first step, because I think in the mental health world, it's really hard to navigate the system, especially with insurance and how insurance is changing nowadays. Yeah. It's really hard to figure out, how am I going to afford this? If I can't afford it, is it going to cause me more stress? Is it going to be worth it? So helping people realize all the different resources that are out there. And, there's group therapy, there's individual therapy, there's so many different ways to get what you need out of that process. And I think when people think about going to a therapist, they think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to sit down one-on-one with someone.
Sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. But
yes.
It's like, by being honest, the reality is that, more people feel that way. And that's where, Jackie's been amazing with us, because we can say, hey, Jackie, we're dealing with the situation. How should we handle it? Because at the end of the day, when we go to a concert or we go to a school or we go anywhere, people trust us, because I'm fully tattooed, and I spend my year going around the world speaking in front of audiences at concerts and whatnot. So it's like, if you can get these people to trust you, you want them to be able to have that same trust when they go to our website, get that the resource, but also just the momentum behind the "It's okay not to be okay" line is just. It's powerful, and I think that's a beautiful thing to say, hey, you can go down this route, but it starts right here at the simplicity of a conversation. Whether it's you struggling or it's you being a person who has lost 15 people like I have to suicide, it's being able to say, you know what, enough's enough. I want to either get help for myself, or I want to get you help, or spread this message and be a part of it, because the more people realize that they're not alone and they're a part of it, they can get through what they need to get through, just like she did, but then carry on and be holding a torch, even if it's out in Sycamore.
Middle of nowhere.
Hey, it
I've
helps.
driven there once. It's quite a drive.
Absolutely.
There's depression in the burbs. There's mental illness in the
everywhere.
burbs.
It's
everywhere.
It's literally everywhere, And the UN right now has put out a very scary report. By 2030, depression is going to be the #1 burdening disease in the world. And they say about how do we get in front of it? And this is how we get in front of it, by not compartmentalizing the build of mental health and mental illness data, by normalizing the conversation. But we need to have more celebrities talk about it. But at the same time, we need the right information going out there. And that's where education is such a crucial tool for all of this.
And being able to use Hope for the Day, the message, and then also some of my volunteer work has been a really big kind of motivator, and it's been a really cool thing to keep me afloat kind of throughout my recovery, throughout like years of counseling I was once in. Like I've been out and I've been, I think, pretty steady, pretty stable for a solid year and a half by now. And I really like to think that Hope for the Day was a big part of it, kind of just this constant reminder with like the work I do, and like, you know, we're all over social media. So waking up every morning and seeing that scrolling through my Facebook has always been just kind of like, oh yeah, it's another day. I was able to get through yesterday, I'm able to get through today and tomorrow. And it was just kind of been this constant motivator to just like keep striving up.
Get to the next day, get to the next day.
Yep.
Real quick before we wrap up, I just want to mention two things. You guys both mentioned that you're in high school now, but when you were like 12, 13, you tried to commit suicide. And you mentioned bullying. And I know that when kids are in high school and junior high and even college, you know, there's so much of that going on. There's so many other things going on. And when you get out of school, that's when life really begins.
Oh, absolutely.
I really want to put that message out there.
Yeah.
Whatever you're going through in the halls of your school, it is nothing. It is this big in your life. And your life has not started yet.
No, absolutely. And it's, you know, the scariest thing is that, you know, suicide is becoming the second leading cause of death of 10 to 24-year-olds worldwide. That's terrifying. But it's because the people in the halls aren't saying, hey, there's help here. We can, you know, I've been through this, you know, but it's our duty. You can say the entertainment industry or anyone's industry to just wave this flag, because the more that it's coming up in, you know, pop culture and whatnot, that's great. But if there's not the right action behind it, it's just, you know, it's a flash in the pan, and you know, it's unfortunate. But the more that we talk about it, the more people in the hallways will be like, hey, you know,
right.
I didn't mean to call you crazy the other day.
You know, I actually want to jump in for a second, just to sort of practice what we preach. Is you actually, one of your phrasings, you said committed suicide. And
I'm sorry, attempted.
and even, you know, so even with attempted, and everyone, especially in the internet age, we have to modify and police like language a lot. And some people roll their eyes. But a big perfect example for stigma is talking about, you know, reporting suicide as completed or attempted, because that can have the connotation of like a crime or something, where when we talk about saying completed or died by suicide, we're trying to wash out of that. And I don't know, you know, Jackie, maybe you want to jump in here and just sort of talking about part of proactive prevention is sort of getting people to understand and appreciate just the sort of.
Yeah, definitely. I think it just comes with using the right language, and I think with mental health there's a lot of jargon and language that people get confused with, and they want to just say whatever comes natural, but sometimes that language can be really offensive to people, so we have to just be mindful of, you know, asking questions. You know, what do you feel comfortable with? You know, as a professional, if I don't know something and the client is expressing something, I'll say, well, what do you prefer? Or, you know, I think most people will feel more comfortable with people asking questions and getting the answer that they prefer, instead of just, you know, saying something and then it kind of, like you said before, hides that, or, you know, stigmatizes it again. But, you know, in the field, you know, just working with families and parents and educating them, because I think if they use the right language in schools and counselors continuously just, you know, promote talking about these issues in a positive way and making it more of a normal conversation instead of something that's a crisis.
Bees, you know? Just like birds and the bees, we need to have parents educating their kids on their feelings too, and not, you know, washing them away. And it's unfortunate that a lot of kids we know out there say, well, my parents don't understand. So we can either sit here and say, well, the parents just don't get it, and that's why suicide's gonna, it's okay that their kid, you know, took their life. Or we could say, hey, how do we change the social policy to change the institutional policy? Because when we go into a school, we're changing both at the same time, and no one knows that. But what the ripple effect has is you know, completely, you know, up to how big of a ripple we make. You know, so if we go to a school, that's one thing. But if we say, hey, we're going to send out a newsletter to all the teachers saying there's an education course too, that's taking the proper steps. And that's why we're so keen on making sure that how we're talking about it is the appropriate way. And that's where, you know, through the education part, it's just so important. You know, it's not like we have to go out there and do much research. It's out there, and people are struggling. We're losing, you know, on average here in America, 121 people a day complete suicide. And that's 44,000 in America, 800,000 around the world. It's unfortunate, you know, and it like hits you right here, but at the same time, it's like, well,
but it doesn't
we all
have to be.
No, it doesn't have to be. No, it does not have to be that at all, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. there's so much more life ahead. There really is, and it does get better.
Yeah.
It really does get better. And there are people to talk to, like Hope for the Day. Why don't you give everybody the website?
Yeah, it's just hftd.org, and you can Google Hope for the Day. We're found everywhere. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing that we push is that, we can't change the weather, but we can weather, ourselves to be prepared for the storm.
Nice.
And that's very important. So.
All right. And in the storm, I just want to mention one more thing. We're going to be wearing these really dope T-shirts that have a boombox on it that say B96, and they have headphones around it. And what is the slogan underneath?
One thing about music, when the bass hits, you feel no pain.
Yes, yes. Have it loud at B96 every day.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And you can get those T-shirts at H.
You can get the T-shirts at hopefortheday.threadless.com, because Threadless, the amazing people from Threadless are our partners on it. But you can also find that link on the B96 website, and pretty much anywhere that there's a Hope for the Day posting going on right now as well.
Right.
So,
and if anybody is in need of just talking to somebody, don't be afraid to reach out. You don't have to be. There's people that want to talk to you.
Yeah.
So Hope for the Day, hftd.org. Thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you.